So let me go into the second part. Okay. How to redesign the world given this knowledge that we just got. Now I have to speed up a little bit, unfortunately.
An underwater photographer standing next to a colossal tornado of fish has been making its rounds on the internet.
Of course, we're always fascinated by the swarms of animals, flocks of birds, and all these kind of things. And actually, the idea to run society basically like a beehive is pretty old, 300 years old. But we haven't done that, actually. Not in a very consequential way, at least. What we have created instead is an over-regulated world that works according to kind of the IKEA principle, so very detailed instruction what you have to do in what order, and there always goes wrong, of course. And instead, what I'm proposing is we should learn to build systems that support reasonable behavior. And in fact, it can work quite well, as this example shows over here. So why is the self-organization working so well here, despite the heterogeneity of traffic flow? Well, it's the design. We have a unidirectional flow in the front. We have the opposite flow in the back, and in between there is a buffer that allows everyone to adjust the speed in such a way that they would have a gap when they want to cross the flow. So just come up with a different design and the system will work well. So the new paradigm would be to go, when there's a complex problem to be solved, from top-down control to empowerment and coordination. And what I'm suggesting is that now with the Internet of Things and cheap sensors for everything, we can actually make the invisible hand work 300 years after Adam Smith. We're there. You can do that. And I've shown you how to overcome congestion actually with mechanism design and real-time feedback, and we can do that also in a multi-level way, not telling everyone what they should be doing as the Chinese citizen score is trying to do, but basically giving freedoms for variation, creativity, innovation, but have some feedback on different levels in order to create coordination in the world and get the outcomes that we want to achieve. How to make self-organization work? Well, I told you complex systems are difficult to understand, predict, and control, but they tend to self-organize, namely emergent structures, properties, and functions. The interactions within the systems determine the outcome of self-organization. So if you change the interaction, the outcome may be changed, and then it's all about finding the right kind of interactions that would create, by self-organization, almost like magic, the outcome that you'd like to have. You can try to figure out what's the right kind of interaction with computer simulation, with experiments, online games, whatever, and then you need to have a platform that gets the real-time data, and you need to have a platform that creates the real-time feedback, multidimensional feedback, in contrast to the money of today. And so can we apply that also to our society, to social systems that are particularly complex? And the answer is, I believe so. And here are two books that I'd like to suggest to read. We know actually the efficiency of self-governance is latest since Elinor Ostrom, who showed it through empirical analysis, got the Nobel Prize. And so I realized that there are cooperation problems around the world, so-called social dilemmas, such as the public goods game and also the Stekan game and others. And that's why we find these kinds of problems over here, so-called tragedies of the commons, overuse of public resources where basically cooperation fails. But it's possible to change the games by adding social mechanisms. And they don't have to be centralized. In many cases, they're decentralized approaches that support cooperation, and we know a lot about this now. For example, direct reciprocity is such a mechanism. repeated interaction would create friendships. There is peer punishment, which is behind the creation of social norms. In fact, that can overcome social dilemma situations and tragedies of the commons and basically create a high level of cooperation and punishment of non-cooperative behavior. And the question is there something better than punishment? Because people don't like to be punished, right? And in fact, there is. Costly signaling, altruistic signaling, actually. So it's not free communication with cheap talk. We know that from fake news and so on. It's not working well. But if there is costly signaling, that is actually quite efficient. And that's not the only mechanism. There's also success-driven migration. There is the grouping of cooperators among each other so that their cooperative behavior would pay off, and other people would see, oh, we behave cooperatively, that pays off, so they would start cooperating as well. That would create a shift towards more cooperation altogether. I mentioned that already, success-driven migration. And then there are reputation systems that can improve quality. Qualification systems can also create more cooperation. So basically, suppose you would have a big data pool for everyone. But of course, you can do a lot of bad things if everyone has access to big sensitive data, right? So you cannot just open it up for everyone. But suppose everyone would have a certain data volume for free and small functionality. And then if it turns out that you're using that functionality well, you would qualify for the next level. So responsible behavior would be incentivized by opening up more functionality, a greater data volume. So as you qualify, you can do more things, basically. This is also how it works in today's sensitive chemical labs or biological labs and so on. We can also learn to mitigate conflict. There are models to understand the spreading of tensions, but also the spreading of conflict and how it can actually be reduced. Namely, either by segregation or by more tolerance or by the creation of social norms. And we understand also how social norms are formed. People are having different, people have different preferences. So for all of this we have created models, and there's in particular this publication that might interest you. I like it because they can do a lot of things analytically about cooperation norms and revolutions. Now the question is, what could be the future of humanity? And I think we would eventually evolve from the selfish Homo economicus to what I call Homo socialis, people with other regarded preferences. Never believed in the concept of Homo economicus, so we started to simulate it and test it. In this model, agents decide according to a best response rule that strictly maximizes the utility function, given the behavior of their interaction partners, in this case their neighbors. Now we assume that the utility function considers not only the own payoff, but also gives a certain weight to the payoff of the interaction partners. That weight is called the friendliness, but it's being set to 0 for everyone in the beginning. So it means everyone is totally selfish and unfriendly in the beginning. But friendliness is a trait that is inherited to offspring, and the likelihood to have an offspring increases exclusively with the own payoff, not utility, right? Only if you really have income, you can pay for the food of your children. So if you're being exploited by everyone, Say you're a cooperator and everyone is a defector, then you won't have enough money to have any offspring. That's what we assume over here. And finally, we assume a certain mutation rate, but in such a way that it wouldn't create a lot of cooperation by itself. What we find is this. So basically, Homo economicus results for most of the parameter space. But there is a corner where Homo socialis results, other regarded preferences. And that is happening when children are raised with the parents. And in fact, humans are the only species that keep children with them for about almost 20 years.
What do you mean by temptation?
Hmm?
What do you mean by temptation?
Oh, the temptation is a parameter in the so-called prisoner's dilemma game. That means this parameter makes cooperation more complicated. The more is the incentive not to cooperate, yeah, nothing else. So, surprisingly, evolution has made many of us other regarding, and that's actually the reason why we are superior to other species. We cooperate in many cases with other people. But for this cooperation to occur, in particular the other regarding preferences to occur, it takes many generations, say about 50 generations. In the beginning, cooperation is costly, doesn't pay off, but then eventually people are conditionally cooperative, and there's enough cooperative neighbors, they would also turn cooperative, and then actually cooperation pays off. And eventually, even though we start with everyone being unfriendly, we'll eventually get this distribution of friendliness with about 0.4 weight, friendliness weight is more or less like love your neighbors like yourself. It would be 0.5. So we're pretty close actually to this. According to the simulation, if you look at experimental data, then you find, oh, yeah, there are some selfish people, but most people have some degree of pro-social preferences, actually. And this was even known at Adam Smith's time. He wrote in his second book that most people don't read, The Theory of Moral Sentiments. However selfish man may be supposed, there are evidently some principles in his nature which interest him in the fortune of others and render their happiness necessary to him, though he derives nothing from it. And so we did computer simulation, which basically showed that over time, not only Homo socialis, people with other regarding preferences occur, also there would be a cooperation among strangers. So, just takes enough generations, and hopefully we will all get to the point where people all over the world will learn to be friendly to each other. And that means we would move from the paradigm of Homo economicus to a paradigm of Homo socialis. Is not an approximation of each other. It's really a different outcome, and it requires a different economic theory and different economic institutions to account for this. So, how can we support this transition, basically? Through artificial intelligence. We could build AI systems that support people to help themselves, but also to help each other. So if I would build a powerful AI system, it would work a little bit like a genie, and sometimes it would listen to what you wish, and sometimes it would not listen. If you had a wish that's selfish, I would just ignore it. If you had a wish oh, hopefully my mother will get healthy again, hopefully my friend will pass that, will succeed in that challenge, and so on. I would listen, I would try to support this, right? So in this way, other regarding thinking and behavior would be supported. Yeah. Now, certainly in a highly diverse world, we need to create interoperability. Now, I believe we can build digital assistants that would help us in all sorts of situations. So, for example, to support situational awareness, to support profitable interactions, to protect us from lossful interactions, to help us set up cooperation and exchange and compensation. And so one of the ideas that I had was to create something like a social mirror, right? So people like to look into a mirror and to be beautiful, and they pay a lot of money actually for their hair cutter, apart from myself. and for beautiful clothes and so on and so on. Because they want to be beautiful. So if you had a social mirror, it shows them what they do to this world, they would want to behave more nicely. And that's the idea. Nothing else needed. There's a patent, and I think we can help build social capital. So in this So Big Data workshop, I will talk about this. And we could actually discover, use, and combine the success principles underlying different cultures in order to solve many problems of the world. Now, certainly there are situations where we need to come to a solution or consensus in this highly diverse world, and how should we do this? I think now is the time with digital tools to upgrade democracy, and it would be about boosting collective intelligence. There's a newspaper article that describes how to do it. Now, the challenge is to bring the best ideas and the knowledge of many minds together. It can also be AI systems. And how would that work? Basically, if there's a complex problem, there's not a simple solution. One perspective is not enough to describe the problem. You would need to have a virtual table on which you collect all the arguments that matter for this complex problem. And then we have to structure the arguments, right? AI might be able to help there. So you would have different perspectives on the problem. Then you would select the speakers, the representatives of each of these different perspectives, invite them to a round table, and they would deliberate together. That would be their job, to figure out how these different perspectives and solutions can be combined with each other. And that's what creates collective intelligence, and that's what digital democracy should be about. And we're working on such kind of things. So Empower Polis, Digital Agora are platforms that we're working on. Now the point is that collective intelligence is superior because diversity wins, not the best. If you have a complex problem and you combine the best individual solution with the second best and the third best, say, it would not reduce the quality of the solution in most cases, but in most cases it would improve the quality of the solution, would make it even better. That's the amazing thing, the unexpected thing about collective intelligence. Combining different perspectives is important. You come up with solutions that work for many people. And in PNES we have recently published a new incentive system to support collective intelligence and come up with solutions that are better than majority decisions and even market decisions. So we can basically build frameworks and institutions and platforms to support it. Now, if collective intelligence is superior, why then don't we try to solve the problems of humanity together? Climate change, energy efficiency, sustainability, resilience, peace, all this. We all have ideas. So let's do City Olympics, where cities would enter a friendly competition. We would have a huge maker fest for kind of 6 months or so, where people would try to work out new solutions. And those solutions would be open source and Creative Commons. We could come up with a best of list of solutions. Any city could take the fitting solution for their city, their culture. They could combine different solutions, they could work together, could be a city networks pushing things forward together. Companies could take solutions, develop them further. Scientists, citizens could use it. And we could go even a step further towards open source urbanism, where basically solutions would be made open source, so you can build buildings, public spaces. Communities could do that themselves, together, like new cities for refugees. You know, to be much more flexible, to create, to empower the civil society. I mean, all of us basically make a contribution to a better future, to nicer, livable cities. That requires openness, collaboration, modularity, granularity, low-cost integration. So the Creative Commons principle would be extended towards open source hardware and open source architecture and open source urbanism. That would lead us to a new kind of globalization that I call localization, where we would think global but act local and diverse. We would experiment, we would learn from each other, and we would help each other. And basically also that implies that the United Nations should be reorganized into an assembly of regional representatives, business and lead representatives, scientists, and representatives of ordinary citizens. But the biggest challenge is really to come up with a better coordination system. Money, as we say, makes the world go round, but I think it has helped us in the past, but it's now the biggest obstacle to the progress of humanity. And why is this? Because it's one-dimensional. And a one-dimensional feedback system will always oversimplify a complex world. It's not suitable to really manage complex systems well. It creates by itself more and less, and top and down, and a hierarchical society. So it's just a matter of time until this idea of equality and fairness and democracy will be undermined by this money-based economy based on a one-dimensional money. And it's the fiat money, by the way, that means possible for some players to create more and more money, which means that even though it still says it's $100, it's actually worth maybe $1, right? So money is just psychology. There's a piece of paper that says $100, and you believe it, and that's why it has value of $100. Money, on the other hand, is a coordination system to decide who gets how much of a scarce resource. And you can imagine it could be billions of coordination systems. There would be millions of better solutions. So why are we still applying a solution that's more or less 5,000 years old and has created booms and recessions all the time, and many disasters and wars and revolutions and so on? It's not just a problem for many people, it's also a problem for the leading countries. Even measured in GDP, it's the industrialized countries that have most debt, so it's really a very explosive situation, a situation that cannot go on forever. So why really didn't we learn from those 5,000 years of experiences? And that's, of course, because there's some elites that benefit from money creation. So when the government is asking for new money, then a certain percentage of this goes into the pockets of very few private individuals. There's billions of pocket money every month, basically. You know. Very nice for them, but we'll have to pay it back, right? So basically that creates a conflict of interest. Those people want their pocket money, and they will get their pocket money only if government asks for new money. So that's what will happen only if the economic situation is bad. right? So basically what's good for some people is bad for the rest of the world, and that's what the system that we're living in. And in fact, it's called quantitative easing, this mechanism to give the pocket money to those elites. And it was claimed it's there basically to produce 2% of inflation, and hasn't worked, but it has created 2 trillion at least of new money. And the argument is, oh, eventually, it will trickle down, and everyone will benefit from this new money, but actually it doesn't really work, right? So we have growing inequality. It's much worse than most people think it is, and even worse than it should be, according to what people expect. And it's so bad that it's even standing in the way of economic development. So my conclusion is it's high time to press this reset button. Now, this system is not serving us anymore, and it's clear that this capitalism 1.0 that we have today will destroy democracy and human rights and dignity eventually, in particular in times when we expect to enter a non-sustainable time where resources get short. So the consumption-based, consumerism-based economy that we have today, where we have as much as we like, more or less, or even more, it won't stay like this. There will be shortages, and then things will be really bad, right? So how will this reset happen? Most likely it will be another crash, and hopefully by then our government should be prepared to have a new system ready. And if not, we'll shame them. Now, what could be the new system? Well, the Chinese have basically built the citizen score, right? So it's a surveillance-based system where they give plus and minus points for everything that people do. If you pay your apartment rent a few days late, you'll get minus points. If you cross the road when there is a red light as a pedestrian, you'll get minus points. If you don't visit your grandmother frequently enough, you will get minus points. If you read critical news, not amused, minus points. If you have friendships with people who read critical news, minus points. And that determines altogether your citizen score. And by the way, there's a similar system in the UK. It's called Karma Police. So it's a digital judgment day, basically, right? So, and then your score determines what jobs you can get, what countries that you can travel to, how much you have to pay for your loans, and also whether you can still use public transport or not. And if resources get short, basically it will determine whether you can still buy a car, if you can still buy meat, if you can still get expensive medical treatment, or you just have to die. That's one of the solutions, the citizen score. I think we should combine the two most successful models so far of our human history, democracy and capitalism, in a new way. At the moment, capitalism threatens to destroy democracy. I think we should civilize capitalism. We should turn it into a democratic capitalism. And in fact, it should have been done already a long time ago, but when the democratization of the world happened, they forgot about the money system. So they let the toys with the elites, basically. So there's an article that describes what needs to be done, and there are basically 3 points that I'd like to highlight. Basic income, investment premium, and multidimensional finance. I show it just quickly. I don't go through all the points because we're a little bit short of time, but you can then watch the movie and see the snapshot, okay? So, why should we introduce basic income? Because we should generate money for everyone's benefit and overcome poverty and satisfy basic needs. And that is even more important in times where we have digital automation because of AI and robotics. And it doesn't make sense anymore in times where we will soon be able to produce all we need for life by robots to not provide people with what they need. So the idea is to introduce the money that has been introduced in a top-down way through the elites, to introduce it in a fair way. I mean, put it on your bank account, everyone the same amount, or everyone proportional to their education, skills, whatever. But give us money, not through a tax system, just through the money creation mechanism. Create money in such a way that it makes the economy work well. So it shouldn't be a hell lot of money. It should be just enough to make a living, to have food, water, shelter, and then you will spend all that money. It goes into the economy. That means there's no loss because the companies will get that money as you spend it on them, and it goes back in a cyclic way. That means the more cycles the money makes, the better actually for the economy. We know that since a long time. And there are benefits for everyone. For companies, because there would be stable aggregate demand. For the people, because it would reduce insecurity, fear, destructive tendencies, like it would allow us also basically to, in times of the digital revolution, to find new kinds of activities, how we can contribute to our society, to reorient ourselves and basically support the economic transition, right? And for politics, basically, it creates more stability. We also have to think about future cooperation. Now, if the money is owned by the people, it's basically lent to individuals, to companies, and the governments by the people. So then people should also have a say of how companies operate, not only the stockholders, but also the staff, suppliers, buyers, local people. And the question is, would it be good or bad for companies? And the answer is, it would be good. As it has actually been shown in a Caterpillar study, where in South America, I believe, and maybe other countries too, they have basically invited in their suppliers, their buyers, the local community, the workers. And that has created systemic solutions that work for everyone, including the company. They made fourfold profits. So it wouldn't be bad for companies. Moreover, basic income is not a perfect solution because it doesn't create competitive incentives, and that turned out to be really a driving force really for progress. So I think we should have a second kind of money that I call investment premium, that would be put on a different bank account, also your bank account. But that would be money not for your own consumption, but to give it away to other people. That's the other regarding point. We should give it to people with great ideas, that innovations, that engage in social, economic, cultural, ecological, or neighborhood projects. You give those people money for the projects that would do what you think, oh, that should actually be done. I think that's a good idea. We want to live in a society where the best ideas win. But then we need to have money to allow these best ideas to succeed. So basically this is about unleashing mass innovation. Many inventions haven't been made or don't make it because they don't get the money. And we should have a funding system that supports this. Actually, the idea has been proposed for scientific funding by Martin Schaffer, and I'm suggesting to extended actually to everyone. So that we could all be doing crowdfunding and unleash in this way collective intelligence and the wisdom of the crowd. In fact, there are already crowd-funded skyscrapers. So why couldn't we crowdfund expensive medicine, expensive technologies, if we just had money for this? Now, I imagine the future to work like this. We would all be doing projects. Companies and political parties are not flexible enough anymore to really respond quickly enough to the change of our world. So we need more flexible organizational forms. I call them projects. Everyone would be engaged in projects. Some projects would be coordinated by you, others you would support. Economic projects, social projects, ecological, cultural projects. You would just engage in several projects, and once they're finished, you start a new one. And we would have platforms that help you to be professional and successful. Not everyone is an entrepreneur, but with the right kind of platforms like social computing, we can help people to organize and run projects, to schedule, to do the financial management and planning and all these kind of things. And we can use augmented reality really to replace years of education by supporting people to do things professionally. We just need to open up that knowledge for everyone. So why don't we do that when we're about to get into a time of crisis? And then finally, multidimensional money. In order to overcome unsustainability, our body, as I said, is a complex system, but it doesn't run on one quantity, like water, for example. It needs many different things: carbohydrates, proteins, vitamins, minerals, and many of them are not mutually replaceable. But the entire economy runs on money, one-dimensional money. I don't think that's suitable to run complex systems well. And that can now be changed. With the Internet of Things, we can measure all those different things that matter. Noise, CO2, garbage of all kinds, plastic, steel, glass, whatever. And good things also, education, health, and so on. Yeah, we can measure it. And then we should combine it with an incentive mechanism. But we, not the government, we should create the incentives that work locally to run our projects. And overall, the approach should be don't harm. Increase positive externalities, reduce negative ones, and have a fair compensation. And now with the blockchain technology, we could create those multi-dimensional currencies for CO2 and noise and those different resources. And that will create a real-time coordination system for our complex world and create new forces in our economy. So for example, we could have smart garbage that tells you, actually, I have value, reuse me, recycle me, bring me there, do this. And in this way, basically, also by using decentralized autonomous organizations, we can actually reorganize our economy towards a self-organizing circular economy and sharing economy, such that the resources that we do have in the world are enough for everyone. We just shouldn't throw them away, we should reuse them. Then we have enough resources for everyone. But the best thing of this system is, this system would be multi-dimensional. That means there's not only one way to be successful. Everyone has to make money in order to make a living, and so basically that enslaves us to some extent at least, right? But we have different talents. With a multi-dimensional system, we could all find and go our own way and be successful. We would be free, right? there wouldn't be top and down, rich and poor, powerful and powerless to the extent anymore that we have. So we the people, we can change that. We can finally break free and transform our society towards a better society that can handle complex systems, that supports efficient self-organization, that gives participatory opportunities for everyone, a society that we would shape together. We would create a better future together. So that's it. Thanks.
Time. Are there any questions? This will be a time just for one question.
Can I have just a comment?
Yeah.
I mean, the technology you describe is the blockchain technology. That's the substitute of money.
Yeah,
as
but you have to
computation
combine that
technology.
with the Internet of Things, basically, and maybe with AI too, right?
Yeah,
So
but
I do think in terms of blockchain, yes, it's a hype, but we're still anyway at the beginning because there's so many opportunities unexplored. And now, yeah, we have to figure out how to build that system quickly enough because we cannot keep up the old system much longer. So there will be,
it is building quick.
yeah.
We collected 300 billion in the last 2 years. So it's a lot of money.
The question is it ready this year, you know, to run a new kind of economy? That would be the goal.